welcome to the complaint desk. Drop your complaints in the bin on your way out. We're just two worship pastors discussing all things worship and church leadership. I'm Danny, I'm here with Doug, and we're here to help you navigate the life and ministry of a worship pastor. Thanks for joining us today. Now let's jump right in. What is up?
Not much. I always forget mute.
Every week.
Yep.
Every week. I love it.
I got all the things going on over here.
Man. So I keep showing Doug my phone through my camera here.
I want to hear it.
Screenshot. I'll show it to everybody who's watching here. Right there. Boom. 85 days. 85 days.
Feels like 15 minutes and we'll be in Christmas.
85 days till Christmas. I love that app, man, because just the day after Christmas, man, it's going to flip over. It's going to say 364, and we'll start the countdown all over.
Oh, my goodness.
I was playing Christmas music yesterday.
I was not. I'll get there soon, though. I'll get there soon.
No, you won't.
It's getting into October.
You're Scrooge, man.
It'll be fall weather here, which means under 90 degrees.
Second summer.
What's the temperature there right now?
It is currently 62 degrees.
Oh yeah. See, we're 75 this morning, and it was cooler. It's cooler. It's supposed to be cooler today than yesterday.
You probably have a coat on, don't you?
No. No, but it's funny how folks in our church will come on Sunday, and I'll see this through I haven't put on a coat in Florida since I've been here, probably maybe twice, or something like that. And then folks will come with Gore-Tex jackets, big, thick, I'm like, God, it's 70 degrees or, 65 degrees outside.
I haven't put on a jacket in North Carolina in 5 years. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's funny, man, because my youngest, it's a little cool out in the morning, I guess, maybe to him. But he came out wearing a sweatshirt the other day. I'm like, man, you forgot you still live in North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, Angela did tell me, my wife Angela, she said we did turn the heat on the other morning. I said, Angela, what was the temperature? Well, it was cool. It was 67. I was like, Angela, you are now adapted to Florida weather,
No doubt, because in my bedroom, I mean, every night gets down to about 62, 63 degrees.
Yeah.
In my bedroom.
See, that's another thing about here. If you ask folks that have lived here for a long time, and I ask them, what do you put your air conditioning, set your temperature at? And no. These guys down here are 78, 79. Oh. And I'm like, I don't know if I could breathe in a room walking in at 79. So when we turn the service at 72, because for a big room, you want to cool it down. Oh, it's so cold in here.
You're freezing those little old ladies out, man. It's the same thing here.
Yeah.
I don't know what ours is set on in the sanctuary here, but it's the same. I mean, everybody's always cold, but me. I got sweat running down my face.
Pastor and I, we're on stage, we're doing the things, band, and everybody's all hot. And we have all the lights on us, But I look out there and there'll be somebody sitting in a jacket and gloves. I'm like, come on, really?
Man, our lighting project is almost done.
Yeah.
It is almost done, and it's awesome, and there's no heat because they're all LED.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we need to make that switch.
It has been super nice. Just have a nice bright light. I'm all about the light, man. So
yeah,
having nice bright light in there without all the halogen heat.
Yep.
Oh.
I wish we will get there. We've got to move our sanctuary. We have like 3 different kinds of light in our sanctuary. It's insane. So we got incandescent and fluorescent and, LED. We have some LED PARs and things like that.
Yeah, we're LEDs everywhere except for there's a little cove kind of light that they have here that's fluorescent.
Yeah, you showed me a picture of those LED cans and stuff that you guys had. You had it was like 40 of them, wasn't it?
I think it's either 36 or 38.
38, yeah. It was a lot.
But they're super nice, man, I tell you, and they give us plenty of light. Video looks way better, although now we got to go back and adjust cameras because everything looks washed out because now we have all this light.
All this white light, yeah.
And not only when you led, that light was coming like straight on almost.
Yeah.
Right. It was coming from those lights in the back when you were here that Sunday you were here. Now it's much higher.
Good.
So it's not right in your eyeballs.
Yeah. Yeah, it was right in my eyeballs.
Yeah. I mean, it's still bright, but it's not like it was when it was shining directly in our faces. So it's nice. Man, looking forward to getting some Christmas stuff going this year. And
that'd be cool.
Plenty of light with all that
It's
stuff.
great to be able to control the lighting in the room. And I don't think people think about that enough as far as their sanctuary. They just think, hey, we just need it bright. Well, not always, not in every situation, not in, you don't want light right directly in your pastor's face for 45 minutes as he's preaching and he has to do this, look down.
I don't know, man. I mean, the thing is, once the service gets rolling,
you don't pay any attention to it.
I don't know that I ever think about the lights ever again, Not when I start leading, when I'm in that mode and as I'm kind of rolling along, I don't really think about, okay, it's hot, okay, the lights are bright.
I've thought about it being hot. So I make this joke with our folks here at First Baptist. When I first came, first 2 Sundays, I had, my dress clothes on, I had a jacket, I had a collared shirt, kind of out and that kind of thing. 2 weeks it took me to burn. I burned up. It was so hot. I thought I was going to have a heart attack or stroke or something. And that was it. Jacket was gone. I was like, I can't do this. So.
Yeah, I don't mind it as much in the traditional service.
Yeah.
I wear a jacket in that service. I don't mind it as much in that service just because there's not. In some ways, it's less active.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's more active.
It's different. Yeah.
Depends on how you look at it. It's just arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just conducting. But contemporary is like your feet are going, your head's going, your arms are going.
Yeah. Hopefully. No, I like. I miss doing orchestra and things like that. I miss leading that kind of stuff and doing things like that.
So this week will be our first week with the orchestra back.
Mm.
They haven't had an orchestra here in years, and we're celebrating our 50th anniversary. It was back in February. We did a little something back then, but it should be a much bigger crowd this week. But we got orchestra. Man, we got the whole shebang.
Mm.
You won't be able to move on that stage on Sunday.
That'll be pretty cool. I'm interested and looking forward to hearing that on your stream. So,
man, I can't get the frog out this morning.
Well, you might as well keep the frog in with what we're getting into today. So,
what we're getting into is my Panthers are playing the Cowboys this week.
Yep. Well, guess I should switch hats.
Oh, man.
I guess I should switch hats. There we go.
Just throw that mess in the trash.
Yeah. I had red in my shirt, so I put the 4th of July Rays hat on.
It'll be interesting to see how we do without McCaffrey back there.
Dude, he got hurt so fast. He is such a dynamic player, but he's like made out of glass or something, I think.
But he's not. They run the boy every daggone play.
They do.
I mean, you smash into people at that speed.
Yeah.
Well, even every other play, you're not going to last.
Commentator was talking about last week, you ought to stand in front of McCaffrey in person and see his legs. I'm like, man, the camera don't add that much. He's a pretty small dude. I mean, he's muscular, he's fit, he's all those things, but he's still a pretty small dude.
He's not huge.
No.
But neither is like Saquon.
No, Saquon. Well,
but that boy's legs.
Yeah, his legs are like tree trunks. Yeah, so.
But it'll be an interesting game. Is it 1:00?
Yeah, 1:00. I'm gonna rush home from church, get out real quick, grab a little bit of food.
I promise you, I won't be rushing home from church.
No, I
There's
ain't
going
rush.
to be a lot of people here. There will be no rushing.
Yeah, you got your homecoming, so you won't be able to leave for a while.
I'll catch up when I catch up. But I'm looking forward to a good game, though. I mean, they both look pretty good this year.
Yeah.
Dallas has looked great.
Surprisingly, the Panthers look good. So,
yeah, I think this is a game though that we're going to find out what the Panthers really are.
we'll come out and play like a dud. We'll come out and dud. I'm hoping not.
Good. Lay one on the field.
Although usually when we play out of conference, we'll lay an egg or something like that. And I thought that would happen with the Chargers last week, and Chargers have a good team. I was impressed with the improvement from the defense from last year because we were so abysmal.
Yeah.
And then to this year, we switched over to Dan Quinn, which I wasn't a big fan of, but man, he knows how to get those players motivated to run and hit, and just like it's all game. It's like it's super intense. So I don't know what he does. We need him to come to church, getting people motivated. You remember the evangelism linebacker?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The church linebacker, man.
That's it.
What's his name? Oh gosh, what was his name?
Oh gosh, those videos were so great back in the day.
If y'all don't know what we're talking about, you need to go to YouTube and look up
evangelism linebacker. You'll see it.
I thought it was church linebacker.
No,
Terry Tate.
Terry Tate. He'd get in your face and just scream and yell like you might see at a football practice or something like that. He would tackle like if you have an opportunity to evangelize and you kind of slide it and you don't pay attention, he'd come out of nowhere and just tackle you on the floor. What are you thinking? It was good. We're way off topic now.
Yes, right. Terry Tate there's office linebacker sensitivity training.
Yeah. Those are hilarious.
Just go and watch those. I mean, even the office ones, just go watch those. Those are so funny. But I promise you this is not all what we came here to talk about at all today.
Yes.
But I do want to share something that I've been reading today, and this is a serious passage, but it's not a serious passage as I read it here.
Sounds like something my kids would say.
Well,
Dad, I got an F, but I really didn't get an F.
Hey, that sounds like a conversation we've had. $3.5 trillion is practically nothing. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah. Nothing.
Sorry. So 2 Samuel chapter 20. I'm gonna kind of skip around because it's kind of a long story. I don't want to read the whole chapter, but to set it up, 20 verse 1 says, "Now there happened to be a worthless man whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjaminite. And he blew the trumpet and said, We have no portion in David, we have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel. So all the men of Israel withdrew from David and followed Sheba, the son of Bichri. But the men of Judah followed their king steadfastly from Jordan to Jerusalem." And so that's kind of the setup here. And so Joab goes out. He goes out and they chase down Sheba, and Sheba is hiding out. I'm trying to see where he is here. Okay, here we go. Verse 14. "And Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel of Beth Maachah." We'll do it again. "And all the Bichrites assembled and followed him in. All the men who were with Joab came and besieged him in Abel of Beth Maachah. They cast up a mound against the city, and it stood against the rampart, and they were battering the wall to throw it down. Then a wise woman called from the city, 'Listen, tell Joab to come here that I may speak to you.' He came near to her, and the woman said, 'Are you Joab?' He answered, 'I am.' Then she said to him, 'Listen to the words of your servant.' He said, 'I am listening.'"
Mm-hmm.
And then they go through all this stuff. Let's see. She says, "You seek to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why will you swallow up the heritage of the Lord?" Joab answered, "Far be it from me. Far be it that I should swallow up or destroy. That is not true. But a man of the hill country of Ephraim called Sheba the son of Bichri has lifted up his hand against King David. Give up him alone, and I will withdraw from the city." So
Take him. Take him.
This is funny. So she says, then the woman went to all the people in her wisdom, and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and threw it out to Joab. So they cut the guy's head off. This is not funny. That's what I'm saying. It's not funny.
But
it kind of is.
Yeah.
So they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and threw it out to Joab. So he blew the trumpet, and they dispersed from the city, every man to his home, and Joab returned to Jerusalem, the king. That's it. Like, how would you like for that to be your portion in Scripture?
Yeah. So they're following a leader and innately...
A worthless man.
Yeah, a worthless man. And he got them riled up, but in their heart they knew this is not right. And when offered an opportunity to bail, the first thing they did was cut his head off and leave. Okay, I'm out. I'm not going to that's indicative of a lot of us, maybe.
So, I mean, there's a lot that really is going on in here, right? I mean, you've got the guy who's trying to basically create an insurrection.
Yeah.
He's drawing people away from David. And he spends that whole time on the run from Joab, right? He runs from city to city to city, and they finally catch up to him. What was it? At Beth Maacah. They finally catch up to him there, and they're beating on the city, and a woman, okay?
A wise woman.
Remember, in those days, I mean, the place of a woman was... I mean, not nearly what it is now. I mean, if you've read the Bible at all, you understand how women were viewed in that day.
And that's why she said, listen, would you listen? It's basically a respect thing, saying, would you entertain what I'm saying?
Sure. And he says, let me have it, lady.
Yeah, hit it. Tell me.
And so this guy, this worthless man, is given up by this lady. Whack off of the head. Throw it over the wall. Joab's like, sweet, let's go home, guys.
That's good.
I mean,
that's good.
There's just so much happening in this story that's just, oh, man. And we skipped over Joab killing Amasa, struck him with the sword in the stomach and spilled his entrails to the ground without striking a second blow. And the guy just lays there in the blood, and people keep walking by, riding by on their horses, like, oh, look, dead guy with his guts hanging out. And they finally drag him off the road. They drag him off the road.
That's when you know you're not liked very well.
Cover him with a cloak.
Yeah.
I mean, here, guys, catch.
We're going to check, see if Danny's okay.
It's just funny how... Who knows how many times I've read that story?
Yeah, I know. Me too.
I mean, and sometimes it's like it finally sinks in, and it's, okay, that's pretty funny, right? It's, like I said, it really is not funny because the dude caused an insurrection, and he ends up getting his head lopped off and tossed over the wall. Yeah,
well, how many times have we seen that? We can directly correlate that today, the principles anyway. How many times have we seen an insurrection or a division? This is how a division in a church starts. Someone comes out and says something super innocent about, the pastor or his preaching or this or that or the other. Or I've heard of silly stuff. I've heard of churches splitting over coffee pots in a Sunday school classroom,
And before you know it, his head rolls.
And before you know it, the whole church is split, and I think sometimes I do think God sits back, and goes, you silly people, you silly people.
Oh, no doubt.
So, and I'm one of those silly people,
of course.
you are, we all are. It's not that we're laughing at others.
But go ahead, man. Follow it up with something serious, because that's all I got.
I don't know if I have anything serious. So James 3.
Oh, that's totally serious.
Oh yeah. I like to read the writings of Martin Luther, and Martin Luther was not very fond of the book of James because of its pointing to works. But I think, this is where he missed the boat. There's a lot of what James says that basically is saying if you are telling people and you're using the words of your mouth and you're telling people that you're living a certain way, you better back it up with your works.
So Martin Luther, for those of you listening that maybe don't know, Martin Luther not only just didn't like the book of James, he said it was not part of the original scriptures, and said it should be taken out of the canon just because it doesn't, on a surface level, read, and you wouldn't expect that out of a guy like Martin Luther, all the study and all the work he did, but on a surface level read, it doesn't read like the rest of the New Testament, right?
Right.
So Luther was like, this is not original. This does not belong. It's been added. Get this out of my Bible.
And the whole basis for him doing that was, you got to understand where he was at with this. The 95 Thesis nailed to the door. He is coming against the Catholic Church in their penance and their use of an intermediary. I can't say that word, but someone between God and man. Intermediary. Yeah, I can't say it.
Intermediary.
That word.
I got you.
But and he came out against that, which is 100% biblical. We would agree with him in that, but I think that shows maybe the danger of extremism as well, because he took it the next step and would say, anything that talks about works at all is wrong and bad and shouldn't be in there. And he pointed to this book specifically. I think where he errs in that, and I'm, believe me, I'm not trying to call him a person in error, but I think where he errs in it is that's what he was dealing with so much. And it was a very hot topic. It was a very sensitive subject. And he was in, it's not easy to come against the Catholic Church, right? Especially the way they were in power.
Especially that day.
At that day. They were the church. They were the religious structure. Much like the Jews were, the Pharisees and the Sadducees were in Jesus' day. Yeah. For Jesus to walk in and say, "Oh, I'm God," that's shaking the foundation of it. Anyway, nonetheless, James 3 says this: if you are wise and understand God's ways, you ask anybody, any Christian at all, yes, understand God's way. That's kind of where we are. But if you are wise and understand God's ways, prove it by living an honorable life, doing good works with humility that comes from wisdom. But if you are bitterly jealous and there is selfish ambition in your heart, don't cover up the truth with boasting and lying. For the jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Such things are earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder and evil of every kind. There's several things that struck me. We don't have time to get into it all, but this whole selfish ambition idea. We live in a Western culture where it's me, I.
Oh, it's all selfish.
Yeah, and it promotes, for you to be a good human being, it promotes selfish ambition. We hardly think of others. We think of ourselves first, right? People say all the time, and it was even in a political slogan of America First, right? And we think about that. Our slogan at our church, our little tagline hashtag, we have kind of changed that in its mentality, and we say love first. We have shirts that say love first on them, because we feel that's what Jesus has directed and is important. But here, just drawing attention to this selfish ambition, and it doesn't alarm me, but it does. We don't think of selfish ambition as anything sinful. Well, good, he's looking after himself. To care for others, you have to care for yourself. We hear this mentality and this psychology. Oh, yeah. But the Bible says here, for jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Such things are earthly, and they're even demonic. And we would get kind of blasted in some circles if, someone was acting kind of selfishly and would say, "You're being demonic." You would think, "Oh, well, that's overboard." No, Scripture actually points to that. And even later on says, this is where you find disorder and every kind of evil. So where this comes to play in the passage that you read, and I think for us as members of a universal church, when we start thinking of ourselves as I, me, in God's economy, we are actually causing division. So when I come into a church and it's all about me, I've got to have the temperature the right way. I've got to have the preaching the right way. You better be singing the songs that I want to sing. Right? And you better be doing it with the style that I want it done, or I'm going to leave the church and go somewhere else. It just shows a selfish mentality. At the end of the day, we come to church to worship a great God, to get encouragement from believers on methods and how, and encouragement of living this life, because this life is hard. And that's what we're there to do, not for our own selfish ambition. And just as well as I do, and I think others listening, something comes to your mind when I say selfish ambition, And I say people, will act like that. We've seen it, and we may have even done it, ourselves. But it's just interesting how God's very serious about this stuff. It's just even demonic. It's unspiritual.
Right.
You should look for others better than yourself, which is super, super hard to do, right?
Well, the two words that you're that we're after here are preference and deference,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Preference, as in, are you following my preference, or am I deferring
Mm-hmm.
what I like and what I want for the good of the body?
Right.
Right.
And we even get into this, and I don't want to get into this now, but we even take some of those preferences and make them a first tier type of issue. So we say, I like hymns. Well, we start from the preference of hymns into, well, hymns are more godly than contemporary music.
Right.
Whoa. And that's where I kind of separate. I'm like, wait a minute. I love hymns and I love contemporary music.
Yeah.
There are bad. I shocked some folks the other day. We were talking in our Bible study, and I said, look, there are a lot of hymns in the hymn book that are garbage.
I come to
Garden alone, yes. What are we saying in this song? It's not teaching good theology. And in fact, for us Baptists, it wasn't even a Baptist hymn to begin with. Not that means anything, but it does. There are certain tenets that we hold to in Scripture that are different there.
I mean, particularly that whole next chapter, man. James in general is just good.
Yeah.
But, what causes quarrels and what causes fights among you?
Mm-hmm.
Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet, cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. You adulterous people. Do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? And he equates right there. Desire to get my way with adultery, right? You adulterous people. I mean, there's just so much in there. Therefore, it says, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. I mean, it's just...
We read that many times, and we read it as if it's not us. I'll speak for myself.
Oh, yeah.
I read that and I think, well, I'm not like that. I don't do that. This is talking about somebody else. But no, it's actually talking about me.
We tend to take that to its extreme. I think we read it in its extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, I'm not literally an adulterer, right?
Oh, I wouldn't do that.
I'm not literally a thief. I'm not literally whatever.
Because we're convinced what we want is right, and the other opposing want or preference is wrong.
Instead of taking to heart that, you know what? I need to take a look at myself. I need to take a look at what's going on in my own mind, in my own heart.
Well, you're using the principle and what James 3 was talking about, and others. The principle of love overrides that. So I'm thinking of others, and my it should not be a selfish ambition. So you know what? If I come into church and we're doing a kind of, and we're worship pastors, so we use music. We're doing a kind of worship song or something like that I don't particularly like. You might like it, and I should look at and be glad that we're doing that,
right?
Because you like it,
because it edifies you,
right? And that should fill me. That's where the source of power is in that.
That's right. Because it edifies you,
right.
I can take great joy in the fact that while I may not like this song, you do. It speaks to your heart. It speaks your language, if you will. But yeah, I mean, I agree. But it just, you ask and you do not have because you ask to spend it.
Yeah.
You ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. I mean, that's who we are, 100%. You, me, everybody, every person sitting in that pew on Sunday morning is that way. We just are. We're sinful human beings, right? And I mean, that is such a great word, though, because I'd say I told you were going to have the serious part.
No, I didn't mean.
Nobody's getting.
There's something funny in here. Hold on.
Yeah, but it's just interesting to me that you're right. We don't apply it to ourselves. We tend to think, well, that's not me. I don't do those things, because, well, it's like you said, because I'm right. And we don't take a true and honest look at our own hearts through that, right?
Yeah.
And that is literally every one of us.
Yeah, well, it says
the best of us. It is literally every one of us.
It says there in the chapter 4 that you read in verse 4, you adulterers, do you realize friendship is friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? I've heard a lot of folks use this as a separation passage. We need to be separate from the world. No, what it's really saying here is your selfish ambition and the things that you're striving for, that is the way the world does it. You should be different. You should show different. Loving others, putting others first, that's what you need to show, because that's what's going to win the day. But if you do it the way the world does it, anyway, preach for about an hour on this. It gets me riled up.
Well, look, we're just particularly attuned to this because, look, as pastors, and specifically worship pastors, this comes to bear on us almost every Sunday, right? I didn't like that song. I didn't like that instrument. I didn't like whatever.
Yep.
And
I'm going to be transparent with you. I get tired of it. I listen.
No doubt.
I listen, and I want to take in any criticism that I think needs to change something. But if it's just a complaint of a preference, I just think there's a better way. We do songs I don't like, and I'm the worship pastor. But here's the thing.
Most of the time, by the time we do them, I don't like them
right,
anymore.
Exactly. That's what my praise team says. But here's the thing. Every church, this is just for free information, every church has to pick a direction to go. Whether that's traditional, whether that's Southern gospel, whether that's contemporary, whatever it is, you have to decide a way to go. I don't think in most contexts, some do, but in most contexts, a all across the board blended works very well. Some contexts it does. But again, that's the point. It's about the context of your church. We have decided to go contemporary. We understand that there's going to be some that are not going to like that. But we hopefully draw together in Christian love and understand what we just read. But yeah, it's hard to get people to see that and say, you know what? Don't say hymns are more spiritual or more godly or more biblical than contemporary songs. You can't tell me Phil Wickham's Living Hope is a bad 7-Eleven song. It's not. It's rich in text. It points to the things. It teaches the things that we need to know as Christians. So, yeah. Anyway, we're on the train.
All right, look. You and I, we're gonna make a pact right here.
Pinky swears. Let me get the camera. There you go.
We will never, ever, ever say 7-Eleven song ever again.
I hate that. Just hate
never,
that.
ever.
Yeah.
Don't even say it again. Don't say it. If you say it, I'm muting you.
I heard it recently. Let me say recently. And
I will go in. I will edit this in post. And I will take it out if you say it. I will mark down the time so that I can go and take it out.
Well, the other term is watered down. I'll Fly Away is not watered down. Anyway, let's roll on before I get in trouble.
So, look, we can kind of tie in what we're going to get into today, and we've already been going 34 minutes. Almost.
Oh, Lord.
I don't want this to be a super long thing, but what I do want to do today is I want to kind of go back. I want to recap a little bit of, we've talked about this before, I want to recap a little bit of who the Southern Baptist Convention is, just as a real quick reminder, and explain some of the things that are going on right now, because if you're not in tune with SBC life, and look, I read this stuff all day.
Yeah.
All day, every day.
Well, to a certain extent, if you're an SBC person, Southern Baptist Convention Church, you need to know these things.
You need to know, yes.
And again, we take in news and things and events, and it can become a source of depression and problem for us. But,
yes, it can.
But you need to know what's going on.
In tune to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to share this with you today if you are not, if you're not quite attuned to what is happening. So just a real quick recap. The Southern Baptist Convention effectively exists 2 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that literally are the 2 days that the SBC is in session. So in 2022, the Southern Baptist Convention will exist June 14th and 15th. Okay, it is a very unique organization. I think things like the NRA, I'm trying to think of anything else. The NRA is kind of that way, right? The NRA exists largely when the people are in that annual business meeting.
Right.
Okay. Sure, they do lots of other things. So do SBC folks, by the way, primarily find the best restaurants and don't tip the waiters and waitresses.
Are you going to Anaheim, by the way? I hate to break you there, but let's talk about it, because I'm considering.
Well, as what we get to, I'm seriously thinking about it.
Yeah, Anaheim is our next convention meeting that you were talking about.
Yeah, Anaheim. Anaheim, California, June 14th and 15th. So it's always right around Father's Day. So the SBC, we are all a part of the SBC, and because we are
voluntarily,
only in session, yes, because we are the SBC, the churches are the Southern Baptist Convention. So two important things to note here. Because we are only in existence 2 days out of the year, we have what is called the Executive Committee, okay? The Executive Committee is basically what operates the other 363 days of the year, primarily to make sure that the will of the messengers is carried out, okay? That is the role of the Executive Committee. Their role is, okay, we had this meeting. These are the things that we have to account for. Now let's go, and it's on us now to kind of help make sure that this plays out like the messengers have voted for it to play out. And of course, you still have things in the past that you're still working with too.
Yeah, and to clarify, messengers are people that go to the convention meeting, and there are me, you, others representing our churches.
So a messenger is voted on by the church, or whatever process your church has to establish such things.
Get in the bus and go. But yeah, there's a form you
primarily
take.
In our church.
Right.
In our church, you just say, "Hey, I'd like to go."
Yeah.
Because here there just aren't that many people that are into it. So it's not like, but some places, I mean, if you're really into it. Oh, what just happened to my video there?
That's fine.
I'm like, well, I'm shrinking. Sweet. But in some places, I mean, people like really want to go. You know, folks may be super involved with it, and you actually have an election process, and certain people are voted to go and represent the church. Now, when you have an issue filling all your spots, then it becomes a more meaningful thing for that church to elect the people that are going to represent the will of the church. Right.
Going to the meeting. So you may have a church of 200 or something, but they only there's only so many members you can send. Right.
Only so many messengers. That's right. So in our church, and even my previous church, generally you did not fill all your slots.
Yeah.
It's, you want to go? All right, we'll put your name on that, and we'll read this list out at a business conference so that it's official.
It's usually a pastor,
our business
some deacons, or some people that are really, and that's fine. That's okay. You're going and representing.
Your state convention, by the way, is probably the same.
Yeah. Same thing, same way.
Your state convention is going to function largely the same, assuming that there are state conventions, I'm pretty sure, that cover every state. Some of them are joint conventions between multiple states. But, okay, so SBC exists 2 days a year. The other 363 days, the executive committee is there to keep things moving as the messengers that your church has sent have voted to do things. So, that said, a very important piece of the puzzle here is what that says is the convention is not a top-down CEO-driven model. It is a bottom-up congregational model, if you will, where the members, the messengers that are sent to the convention, they speak on behalf of their church, and then therefore whatever vote passes in the convention, that vote speaks on behalf of the messengers of that convention. It doesn't matter if it's 51% to 49%. Whatever vote carries is the vote that speaks for the convention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So this is why it's important, right? Because the messengers make the decisions, the executive committee, the EC, carries it out. So right now, we have the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, which is Ed Litton. Okay, Ed's a California pastor, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what church he's at. He's got his own issues he's dealing with right now. We'll save that for another day. But so you have all these messengers that have spoken now, and what they've said is, here's the will. You guys, the
EC,
the executive committee, you guys, it's on you now. We pay you. It's on you to carry this out for the rest of the year. So whatever the convention says for those 2 days, whatever votes are passed, whatever the convention says, the executive committee is on the hook. Ronnie Floyd is the chair of the executive committee. Whatever the messengers say, the executive committee is on the hook to carry it out. Okay. So there's your little bit of history recap on the SBC. Now, more recent history. Here is the motion that was read this past June. Motion, and Jared Longshore from Florida made this motion, that the messengers asked the newly elected president, Ed Litton, of the Southern Baptist Convention to appoint a task force to select a Christian third party made up of SBC pastors to investigate the ERLC staff and board regarding their involvement in past presidents' alleged concealment of grievous sin and his handling of the same, and further move that such an investigation include all current and former staff, board activities, and confidential ERLC records back to 2018, and that the task force, I can't talk today, that the task force report back to our convention at the next annual meeting with the findings of the investigation as well as any recommendations for actions to be taken by our convention. Okay. So, and I read the wrong motion. That was the ERLC mess.
I was
knew I was going to do
I was
that.
playing a stone face there.
Thank you. God, why don't you straighten me out, man?
Read the other motion.
Hang on.
That was with the.
I thought I was there, but I missed it.
That was the old ERLC stuff.
Yeah. Oh. The Gaines motion is the one I was after.
Right.
Now I can't find it. I thought that was.
Grant Gaines brought a motion on the floor to.
Oh my gosh!
You want me to summarize? To essentially.
I wanted to actually read the motion.
Will you find it?
Give me a second. I'll find it. Man, that is stupid.
Tick, tick, tick. We got viewers just falling away right now.
I moved. Okay.
Here's the Grant Gaines.
Sorry,
motion.
that was a competing motion. That was my bad. I thought I clicked the right link, and I literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different tabs open to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. Here it is, and I'm sorry. If I could go back and just delete what we just did. Rewind. Okay. I move that the Southern Baptist Convention meeting June 15, 16, 2021, Nashville, Tennessee, asked the newly elected president of the SBC to appoint a task force within 30 days of the date of this convention that shall be comprised of members of Baptist churches cooperating with this convention and experts in sexual abuse and the handling of sexual abuse-related dynamics. This task force shall either assume oversight of the third-party review announced previously by the executive committee or initiate a separate third-party review. Said task force shall ensure that the third-party review includes an investigation into any allegations of abuse, mishandling of abuse, mistreatment of victims, a pattern of intimidation of victims or advocates, and resistance to sexual abuse reform initiatives. The investigation shall include actions and decisions of staff and members of the executive committee from January 1st, 2000 to June 14th, 2021. So in other words, the day before this past convention. This investigation should include an audit of the procedures and actions taken by the Credentials Committee of the Southern Baptist Convention which was formed at the convention meeting in Birmingham, Alabama, June 11-12, 2019. The review shall be funded by allocations from the cooperative program. We further move that the task force agree to the accepted best standards and practices as recommended by the commission third party, including but not limited to the executive committee staff and members waiving attorney-client privilege in order to ensure full access to information and accuracy in the review. Let me just read that statement again, because this is where we're hung up. We further move that the task force agree to the accepted best standards and practices as recommended by the commission third party, okay, which is Guidepost is that third party now. We know that. Including but not limited to the executive committee staff and members waiving attorney-client privilege in order to ensure full access to information and accuracy in the review. A written report on the factual findings of this review shall be presented to the task force 30 days prior to the SBC annual meeting in 2022 and made public in full form within 1 week of the task force receipt of the report, along with suggestions from the task force for actions to be taken by our convention. So I do want to point out that the motion that I erroneously read first, the motion from Longshore, and I should have, I don't know why that didn't trigger in my mind. You can see the two focal points you see the focal points of two different groups.
I would say agendas, but you
okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Agenda's fine.
Yeah. For those who don't know there.
So in this convention we had a very interesting setup. We had your standard convention goer, I would say. Southern Baptist Convention is overall, I would say, fairly conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that? That's not a mischaracterization.
No,
right?
I would say the term conservative has changed based on recent political elections. Sure. So me personally, I'm a conservative, but to some conservatives, I'm considered to be a liberal now. And I've been confused on, like, how did I change? I still believe conservative values, but now because the definition has shifted underneath my feet.
Because of the national
political things and stuff like that. And there is a part that plays in all of this and some of the backdoor meetings and things like that.
Okay.
So to summarize, if you will let me summarize what that motion said by Grant Gaines and very
well hang on now. Right. Hang on now. I want to make a point before you do that.
Right, do that.
Because what I'm trying to set up here is that motion from Longshore, Jared Longshore. He was approaching that from the what are they called? Conservative CBN. Mm-hmm. So you had this new entity formed, the Conservative Baptist Network,
unofficially headed by Paige Patterson.
Yeah, so there's a lot of history in there, and there's a lot of really, really, really hard feelings.
Who is, by the way, part of the investigation that they want to do into the...
So Paige Patterson was removed from all authority within Southern Baptist life because of how he handled things during his time as president. Did that occur at Southeastern and Southwestern?
Southwestern, yeah. And there's two things that he was dealing with, and one of them was a cover-up of a sexual abuse that happened on campus, and the secondary thing was mishandling of monies, and all that. So there was a lot of discussion on that.
So Paige Patterson has really worked behind the scenes to set up the CBN network. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
If you want to start your CBN stuff, but the reason I bring that up is because as you look at that, you've got your general SBC goer, and then you've got this rising faction of the CBN that popped up this year. and tried to have their own guy elected and was pretty soundly defeated because everybody saw through what was happening, right? It was very clear what was happening. Everybody saw right straight through it like the clearest pane of glass you've ever seen.
Right.
And so this motion from Longshore, basically what this group is getting at, the ERLC, the Ethics and Religious Liberty
Commission
from the Southern, they're one of the entities of the Southern Baptist Convention. They have their own trustees, they have their own board of directors, but just like the executive committee, they are still accountable ultimately to the messengers, the bottom up mentality, right? The ERLC submits to the will of the messengers, just like the seminaries submit to the will of the messengers. Okay, so Longshore, you can see the focus here. He wanted to appoint a task force to select a Christian third party made up of SBC pastors, and I feel pretty confident that they would have selected the pastors and basically shut the ERLC down. But to investigate the ERLC staff and board regarding their involvement in the past president's alleged concealment of grievous sin and his handling of the same. Okay, so you see who they're after.
They're after the ERLC because
that group is after the ERLC.
Right.
Yes.
And there's two things with that. One, the ERLC wanted to bring these accusations to the forefront and address them with transparency. And that was said clearly. The other side of it was there were certain groups, including this CRB, whatever, CBN, that wanted to deal with it differently. They wanted to keep that for the better of the Southern Baptist Convention, keep that from coming forward and coming to light. So that's where the two factions are kind of at each other.
So in this past convention, the Longshore Motion and the Grant Gaines Motion were both referred to committee. Okay, most motions get referred to committee because there are certain committees that are tasked with handling certain things. Okay, and so both motions, okay, but this motion by Grant Gaines to investigate the executive committee, do you know who that was referred to?
Who specifically?
Executive committee.
Yes, it was referred back to the executive committee, who by the way, and I'll be kind of biting here just a little bit, who was largely filled with sympathizers to the CBN.
Yeah.
And they are working the system in the background to try to benefit one faction as opposed to the will of the messengers, and that's kind of where we're at.
So interestingly enough, both of these motions, the one to investigate the ERLC and the one to investigate the EC, both were
sent back
referred
committee
to the EC.
Right.
Okay. That's standard. Okay. Right. That has.
So are they going to vote to investigate themselves? Is what you're saying?
There was no right. There was no. Please hear me. There was no wrongdoing in that referral,
right?
Because
that's supposed to happen.
Pretty much every motion gets referred to some committee because there's already a group there to handle most of what gets brought up. Now, the interesting point here is the messengers overwhelmingly voted to overrule the chair, in this case, J.D. Greer. And it was not J.D. J.D. was doing
representing
what J.D. was supposed to do, right? Hey, we send this to the Committee on Order of Business. Committee on Order of Business says, look, this is an executive committee issue. Send it to them. Okay, boom. JD's like, okay, this motion, they've all been referred here. This motion has been referred there. And these two motions are referred to the executive committee. So what happened at that point is the messenger said, wait a minute, we don't want that. We want to vote right now. And so they voted on whether or not to vote, which sounds dumb.
Sounds silly.
But you have to make
a motion and put that through to actually have a vote right there in the room at that time.
Because if you don't follow your process, and here's the important piece of the puzzle now. If you don't follow your process, as silly as it might seem to vote on voting, you're
setting it up for failure. Yeah.
Your actions hold less and less weight, and ultimately the legal system, and I don't mean this
The polity system.
negatively on the legal system. The legal system is going to bring it down because you're not following your own rules. Okay, which is why a proper constitution and bylaws is appropriate in a church, because you need to follow your rules.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting really deep in the weeds here. I understand that, but so the messengers voted to take it up right then, which passed. So they did, and it overwhelmingly passed. Upper 90%.
Grant Gaines
passed.
motion. Yeah.
Grant Gaines motion. The other motion they did not vote to pull back to the floor.
Right.
The ERLC motion, the Longshore motion. They did not vote for that to come back. So, by the way, that vote to overrule the chair and to bring a motion to the floor is a 2/3 vote too.
Which is an even steeper vote to make.
Yes. So most folks who were in the room estimate the passage of the Grant Gaines motion. Now, it's already been voted to be voted on. It passed the 66% rule. Most people in the room estimate that it was north of 95%.
Yeah, it was largely unanimous.
To pass this motion.
To investigate the
executive committee. Now, all that said, the ERLC motion sits still with the executive committee. Okay, we don't know what's happening with that. Will they eventually vote to look into that? Who knows?
They want to, and they want to distract away from what they've been required to do by the messengers. So they want to distract with this other ERLC thing. So
here's where we stand. 3.5 months after the fact, the executive committee met, and the executive committee was like, fine, we agreed to the investigation, let's make it happen, but we will not waive privilege. So let me just go back. Including but not limited to the executive committee staff and members waiving attorney-client privilege. You have no choice.
Well, and some people have asked, well, how can that be, and how can you mandate somebody give up their own rights? Here's the crux of the issue. These individuals are not being investigated personally. So if I work for a company, like for my church, and I use we talked about this a minute ago, and I use my church email to interact business, and I use my church avenues of influence to interact business, my church has a right to look at those things, right? And my communications, and so...
Well, and things that you do on church time.
Exactly. There was a former political issue that I don't want to bring up the names, but there was... about an email server and different things. And everybody mandated, we have to have this because you're operating, even though it's a private email server, you're operating under the auspices of Secretary of State. That needs to be reviewed. It's similar to the same issue here. You're operating as an EC board, a large group of people for the Southern Baptist Convention. The Southern Baptist Convention messengers said, this needs to happen, and we are requiring you to do this. They have said, They haven't said no publicly, let's be clear, but they want to negotiate what they can do, which...
Yes, they want to put limits on it.
To me, not...
That's not what you were asked to do.
I'm not trying to push any buttons here, but to me, you are directly defying what the messenger said to do, period.
Directly, yes.
Yes.
So here we are 100 days out.
Yeah.
And the initial meeting happened over a handful of days, and they could not come to consensus. So they voted to extend it 7 days. They met again. Same thing happened. They voted to extend it 7 days. And this is where we are. We're at the end or in the middle of that second 7-day period at this point, at the recording of this podcast here on Friday, October 1st, at 10:03 a.m.
Now so, there's somebody called it a whistleblower last night or something. I don't know about that, but literally every state is now putting because our state here in Florida, we have Tommy Green, who's our Southern Baptist Convention local Florida president, all these states are putting out statements now saying essentially the same thing. We encourage prayer, we encourage lifting up, put these before the Lord, but we are sadly and seriously disappointed at the motion of the things that are going on with the EC board, and we encourage them to do the right thing. So
here's,
you're seeing a wave of that. I've seen just about.
Yeah, and it's like these letters. It's like they're like, "What are you saying?" Well, what do you say? I don't know. What do you say?
Yeah.
Here, I'll copy and send it to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to read. They're all basically the same.
I can read Tommy Green's. You read North Carolina's. I'll read Tommy Green's from Florida.
Well, I don't think we need to read both because
mine's
they're
better.
Practically we'll read yours.
No, you're right. They essentially say the same thing, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but.
Well, here I do want to read this one.
Go ahead.
I want to read the whole thing, but not necessarily this one, but it's what I've got in front of me. Let me just read it because they all say the same thing. So far we've heard from North Carolina, Michigan, Texas, Florida, South Carolina. Who am I missing? There've been a number of state conventions.
Oh, there was a bunch last night that came through. Yeah.
So let me tell you why this is important, so that you'll pick up on this when we get to it. When your church gives to the cooperative program is the funding mechanism, the funding avenue for the Southern Baptist Convention.
Mm-hmm.
When you give to the cooperative program, that money goes first to your state convention. Okay, then your state convention essentially disburses funds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so some stays in your state. Most of the time, it's in the neighborhood of 50%. 50% of your cooperative program dollars stay in state for your state convention.
Mm-hmm.
That's what helps fund them, helps them keep state level ministries going and things like that. Okay. Then they send the remaining portion to the Southern Baptist Convention. And then the SBC has certain percentages that are set up in these
all this
plans.
Is public and transparent. All this stuff is.
I can't remember all the.
Florida, we're near 75%. We keep 75%.
The state convention stuff is not. It's all out there on the SBC website. Mm-hmm. That is not set. Your state convention determines what stays in state and what goes to the national convention. Then the SBC now, their disbursement plan is set. Okay, certain percentage goes here, certain percentage goes here. Some goes to seminaries, some goes to the IMB, some goes to Ethics Religious Liberty Commission, some goes to Lifeway, some goes to, you name it.
Get the breakdown.
All of the entities. That's where it goes. Excuse me. So let me read this letter because I think it gives a little bit of history in here or a little bit of background to understand what's happening along with potential course of action. Okay. So this is from our newly elected executive director treasurer. I never understood that.
Yeah, ours is the same way, executive director treasurer.
But from our newly elected guy, Todd Unziker. Okay. He's only been in that position, 2 months?
Yeah.
So this is what he writes. Dear North Carolina Baptist, thank you for your partnership in the gospel. Our cooperative mission efforts depend on your continued trust and participation. I have received questions and comments from church leaders across North Carolina related to recent actions by the Southern Baptist Convention's Executive Committee. Like many of you, I am deeply concerned and disheartened by what I have observed in recent weeks. Okay. I'll speed through this. Messrs. 2021 SBC annual meeting voted to launch third-party investigation, SBC Executive Committee, into any allegations of abuse, mishandling of abuse, mistreatment of victims, pattern of intimidation of victims, advocates resist sex abuse reform initiatives. I'm never going to be the guy at the end of the commercials. The motion approved overwhelmingly by messengers instructed the SBC president to name a task force to oversee the investigation. That 9-member task force is led by North Carolina Baptist pastor Bruce Frank, who has demonstrated godly, courageous leadership under difficult circumstances. Members affirmed clear stipulations in the directive that were meant to ensure a thorough investigation resulting in public report free from interference. The Sex Abuse Task Force provided a FAQ document if you want to learn more. To date, the SBC Executive Committee has not agreed to follow the expressed will of the messengers. I'm just going to read that sentence one more time because I think every one of these statements says this. To date, the SBC Executive Committee has not agreed to follow the expressed will of the messengers. This resistance has damaged trust within our family of churches and far worse has devastated survivors of sexual abuse. These vulnerable men and women deserve the full truth. We grieve with them and pray for justice. You may be wondering how to respond. Here's the important piece of the puzzle, okay? Many of you have asked about your giving to North Carolina Baptist, and specifically if you can negatively designate against an SBC entity. In other words, withhold funds, okay?
Designated
North
giving.
Carolina, yep, designated giving, yep, and we hate it in churches. But anyway, North Carolina Baptists are a movement of churches on a mission together, meaning we believe we exist for the local church, God's plan A. While we think negative designation is a blunt tool used only used as a last resort, if your congregation feels led to do so, your North Carolina Baptist staff stand ready to serve you. In other words, they'll facilitate that.
Mm-hmm.
Pray for comfort and peace for victims of sexual abuse. Pray for boldness, wisdom, SBC Executive Committee members, especially those from North Carolina. Pray for the Sex Abuse Task Force Chairman, Bruce Frank, as he continues to lead. And he closes with a few other random things down here. But I do want you to hear they have all said this.
Every one of them, yeah, because I was reading Tommy Green's statement here.
To date, the SBC Executive Committee has not agreed to follow the express will of the messengers. Okay, they pretty much all have a very, very similar line in there. And then they all say, while we think negative designation is a blunt tool only used as a last resort, in other words, we don't think that not giving to the Executive Committee is a good thing. We don't think designated giving is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
If your congregation feels led to do so, your North Carolina Baptist staff stand ready to serve you. In other words, do what you want. We'll make it happen how you say. So, as those dollars go into your state convention or your group of states convention, depending on where you are, as your money flows into that convention, you can say, your church can say, I don't want to give to the Executive Committee because we're funding a group that has ignored what the convention overwhelmingly voted for them to do. Okay, so look, we complain about this all the time in our churches. We complain when people will give to a designated fund in order to bypass the
what they don't want to
general
give to,
budget
general tithes
of a
and
church.
Offerings,
They'll bypass the general budget of the church in order to force the church to get their way.
Mm-hmm. Not all cases are like that, but a lot of times
they're not. But I see this as a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's not that we're not getting our way; it's that the Executive Committee is completely overstepping their bounds.
Mm-hmm.
And to be blunt with you, we have two options. In some ways, these are about the only two options that we have at this point in the game. We don't give to the Executive Committee. In other words, we designate our giving. We say, look, that 5% of the budget money that goes to the Executive Committee, put that over with the International Mission Board or North American, whoever, doesn't matter. Put that 5% into this entity instead of the Executive Committee. So we're negatively designating. Okay. So we're still giving essentially to the general fund. We're just eliminating this one piece. Okay. You have that option to essentially defund the Executive Committee, which means salaries don't get paid, things along those lines, okay? They have no operating budget. The other option is in Anaheim in June 2022, in essence, we take the nuclear option and we vote as a whole to wipe that slate clean of trustees and appoint a whole new slate of trustees that will follow the will of the messengers. So those really are our two options at this point. I'm very disheartened that you've got a group in the Executive Committee and in the trustees. Now, please, there are some great people in that trustees group.
Oh, yeah.
It is not all of them. It is not all of them. But there are a number of folks that are trying to hide something. It seems clear to me, and to see this is the issue, I want to have good faith in talking about this. It certainly seems like they're covering something.
Well, I think
if you're not covering something, why won't you waive privilege?
We've already seen the proof of that with Paige Patterson. And some people don't want to accept that, but we have seen the evidence of that with pastors that have been released from their church because of sexual abuse, and they get another job somewhere else in another church, and many times have been backed by someone to say, we recommend this guy to get a job. We've seen the evidence of that.
Paige Patterson, I got two of his commentaries sitting right here on my shelf.
Yep.
I mean,
so the evidence is there. Yeah, I think we're not even arguing about evidence anymore. So there are hundreds of, by the Houston Chronicle article, there are hundreds of that come sexual abuse victims that have come forward and said, we're not trying to tear the church down. We don't want to do any of that kind of stuff, but we want accountability for the way we were treated. Yeah. They're not trying to passive aggressively go after their attacker or anything like that. They're saying that leaders within executive committee, the Paige Pattersons, those guys, and we've already seen documented where Paige Patterson did do that. Others have done the same thing, and we want this uncovered. And like I said before, there's two thoughts of schools of thought, and I wouldn't even call one a school of thought. There's what Russell Moore promoted upon his leaving of the ERLC. Let's make this stuff transparent. We want to bring these issues forward. Let's meet it head on. Let's do the right thing. Let's learn. Let's listen. There's the other side of it that will say, no, it's too damaging to Southern Baptist Convention. Let's cover it up. And to the point,
we might lose our insurance.
Right. Well, don't even get me into that because that's not true. There is a possibility of that, but it's already been told to them in detail what's going on with that. And that is a false narrative that's been put forward just to distract, in my opinion only. But there's a lot of, not only because there's a lot of others, even people on the EC committee who voted for waiving the right. And there's a good group of Dean and Sarah was one. There's a bunch of others that voted to waive that. Yeah. What I appreciate is them being open via Twitter, via blogs, via videos, how disgusted they are with some of the actions in the room. I've been a big respecter of Ronnie Floyd in the past. Not so much now with some of the actions that I'm seeing.
He seems to be just standing in the way.
Yeah.
He seems to be covering something up.
Or covering something up for maybe not himself, but for others. A few of the sexual abuse victims that have worked with some of these people in the behind the scenes to try to, before all this blew up, they have said that Ronnie Floyd and the Paige Pattersons and others have stood in the way and even maligned them, abused them verbally, and all these kinds of things. We're seeing a side and a brand of SBC, I don't want to say polity, but we're seeing a lot of the past political 2016 and forward agenda stuff kind of filtering into the Southern Baptist Convention. And it is extremely discouraging. Let me point out, though, there are a lot of good, and I've seen it this morning. You can just browse Twitter 5 minutes, type in SBC Executive Committee. There are a lot of good pastors, good churches, loving people that want to move forward and do this the right way. So that's encouraging. It's just...
Well, I mean, Scripture tells us that there is no hope in darkness. Yeah. There's no hope in covering this up. What's going to cause reconciliation? What's going to cause the gospel to be able to move forward is how we bring these things to light and deal with them and put them behind us, right? I mean, in Ephesians, Paul tells us that it's in the wake up sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you, right? You're dead in your sins. As long as we sit here and cover these and wallow in them, we're dead in them, right? Our impact, I mean, Scripture shows us that we can't, and we talked about it this morning, we can't have preference for ourselves.
Yeah. Looking for the best of others.
Whatever we're trying to cover up. I mean, look, when you've got 15,000 messengers that essentially voted for you to do this,
You don't get a choice.
If you can't do it, if you don't have a choice, right? If you can't do it,
resign.
Step aside.
Resign.
See ya. Yeah.
And you're still going to be investigated anyway, because that's where this is at.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you're going to, as the CEO of the executive committee, if you're not going to do what you have been directed to do, it's time to go away. It's time to step down. Turn the reins over. Step aside. Go do your thing.
I mean, I echo that as well. I know a lot of other folks do. It is frustrating to see, and a lot of churches are deciding now whether they even want to be part of the Southern Baptist Convention anymore after this. Fortunately, here in Florida, we have started pulling back a lot of the giving going to, the head, and we keep 75% of our stuff. That's one way to do it. Send your Southern Baptist giving. But my problem with that is I benefited from a seminary, right? Because of EC or cooperative program dollars. There's good seminaries out there. There's Southeastern.
Well, let's be real about this though. Where are you going to go?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you if you're not a part of the Southern Baptist Convention? What are you going to do?
You can go
Your
independent.
options go independent.
Independent.
You can do it.
Yep.
You certainly can do that. But the beauty of the Southern Baptist Convention setup, the beauty of all of that is together our sending power is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the International Mission Board. Look at North American Mission Board. Look at your seminaries. I mean, those three things right there, the IMB, NAM, and the seminaries, you're not going to find a group that does better. I promise you.
The best sending organization in the world.
Especially that's not driven by a pope
yeah.
or a bishop, right? You know what I mean?
Well, that's why
it's going to be a top-down leadership. That's part of what makes the SBC unique.
Yeah.
And what has made it so effective is because of the type of leadership.
So let me play devil's advocate and flip that. Really what we're talking about ethically is, are we okay with just ends justifying the means? So how much longer, and I don't know the answer to this, but how much longer do we overlook folks like Paige Patterson, Ronnie Floyd, standing in the way of these things? And we understand and know that they're covering up. I don't think they have bad hearts about it. I don't think they have evil hearts about it. I think they're misguided and just don't connect and understand with what's going on. Their ethics are twisted. They're justifying, they're saying, well, we're protecting the Southern Baptist Convention, when in reality, covering up sin is not doing it's not protecting anybody. It's actually damaging the victims more, and it's also damaging our future as a Southern Baptist Convention.
And ultimately, it's damaging the witness of the gospel.
Right. Because people,
you think news stations aren't picking this up?
Goodness, people are watching this like crazy and tuning into this. And here we are presenting the worst side of everything. So I think you can, people listening, I think, or will hear this, I think that you can hear our frustration with this. It's no longer, do we agree on this preference or that preference? This is outright open sin, and how much are we going to put up with it is what it's coming down to for a lot of churches.
So I would encourage you to prayerfully consider all of this. I know that some people are not going to listen to this whole thing. I mean, we're almost an hour and 20 minutes into it.
Yeah.
I know some people aren't going to listen to the whole thing. So if you have scrubbed to the end here, here's the bottom line. Here's the TLDR.
You're going to have to help me with that.
You need to be praying.
TLDR, you're going to have to help me with that one.
Too long didn't read.
Oh. Too long didn't listen.
You never seen that?
No, I've never seen that. I just read the Bible, man.
Too long didn't read, and then there's the one statement summary. So here's your one statement summary. You need to be praying about this.
Yeah.
This is a problem, and this problem needs to be fixed.
It's not going away.
And you need to be praying. Yeah, it's not just going to go away. We can't ignore it, because if we've shown that if we ignore it, it blows up into a big giant evil monster that threatens to eat and devour us all.
Yeah, I'm not convinced
that's what the scripture tells us that sin is, right?
Yeah.
Satan is like a roaring lion, who's seeking who he may devour.
I don't think taking our money and going home is the answer. I will say that.
So look, I hate designated giving.
Yeah.
I hate it with a passion.
Yeah.
But in this case, I could be tempted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I am.
I would encourage you, don't leave the Southern Baptist Convention. Don't stop giving to the cooperative program. I think you're much better served by just excluding the executive committee than, in essence, taking your ball and going home.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are eliminating your piece of the pie of being a sending powerhouse that the Southern Baptist Convention is.
Right.
We have thousands of missionaries on the field because of our collective giving.
There's so much good that happens. Yes.
And is currently being ruined by a handful of people. So I would rather see you exclude the executive committee than pull out altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather see you exclude the executive committee than to drop your CP giving down to 1%.
Mm.
Now, look, there are churches across the board that have giving at 1%. Or it's like tipping your waitress 1 penny because she was not good, right? You're intentionally doing that to be harmful.
Well, that's a good thing about autonomous churches. Because we are autonomous churches,
sure.
We can decide what to give.
But I am encouraging you, though, don't pull out.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much good still there, and this can be fixed.
I don't know if I'm there with you quite yet. I am there with not pulling out because I don't think that's the answer. Taking your ball and going home completely is never the answer. But I think a message needs to be sent to the backdoor meetings and the good old boys system to say we're not doing this anymore.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that message can be sent if you do the exclusion of the executive committee. And then if that doesn't prompt change as we get to June 2022, I think if nothing changes in this, okay, let's just say this stalls right here. I'm praying and hoping that it doesn't. But let's say it does. Let's say this stalls right here. Whatever happens in 2022, I think is going to dictate what a lot of people do. So I would encourage you, don't do anything rash. Exclude the EC if you need to, fine.
Right.
If that helps you, if your church feels like that is the way to go, fine, do that. I wouldn't make any drastic decisions about dropping overall cooperative program giving or pulling out completely until 2022 hits and we know what the convention as a whole is going to do. Because I would guess, look, historically, when the convention has been in California, they have been some of the lower attended conventions.
Yeah.
Just because the Southern Baptist Convention is, yes, we're national. We're called Southern Baptist. We're a national convention. California generally is just lower attended because most of the Southern Baptist Convention is coming out of the Southeast.
Yeah.
Just bluntly, I mean, we're coming out of the Southeast. You're here. I'm here. Most of the SBC does. They're great people all over the country. Obviously, we've got a president from California right now. But generally, the California conferences have been lower attended simply because it costs more for people to go and to get there, more time, more money, those kinds of things. So I don't think that will be the case in this one, especially.
I'm considering going. I know you are, and
I am.
Fortunately, I belong to a church that provides some funds to send our pastors to conventions and things like that because they encourage us and want us to be part of that because the church is, it affects the church. So I'm heavily considering going. I think the opening of hotels and stuff like that's coming up today or tomorrow.
It's today?
Today, yeah. Yeah. So if you want to get a hotel, you better get in there quick. So.
Yeah, I anticipate this is going to be a big one. Let's see if it's open yet. Yeah, it's open now.
Okay.
And I will.
Let's talk about it.
Let me see here. I just wanted to kind of look and see. Oh my goodness, I've been added to a queue to secure housing for the 2022 annual meeting. I am 260 of 263.
Whoa.
I don't believe I'm going to hang on to that.
Yeah.
Later. If you want to go, I mean, look, that tells me the hotel reservations has been open for a very short time. They were not open when we started this because I checked.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been open not more than an hour. That tells me that this is going to be a big one. So, look, it's up to you and your church what you do. I would encourage you, don't pull out yet. If this doesn't get resolved now, if this doesn't get resolved in this 7-day extension, I have a really strong feeling that it will be resolved through the groundswell
Mm-hmm.
as we get into this convention in 2022. So just keep in mind, if you pull out now and you don't give, you're essentially excluding yourself from being a part of the solution.
That's a good point.
Okay.
That's a good, fair point to make, yeah.
So if you want to see it resolved and you're willing to have a little bit of patience, put in a little bit of time, a little bit of money, if this doesn't get fixed now, go. I really wanted to go to the Sing Conference next year. I don't have the budget to do both.
Mm-hmm.
If this doesn't get resolved, I won't be going to the Sing Conference.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be going to Anaheim. My only California experience is not good. It was spent sitting on the tarmac in San Francisco for hours. So
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to that. But it will be a good time if you go. But it is right there around Father's Day too. So just keep all that in mind.
I just I just perused a map here on the SBC.net. I think you'd be surprised how many churches are in the West. There's 106 Southern Baptist churches in Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So there's rough shot. There's about 3,000 churches in California, it looks like.
But the majority is North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Florida.
Yeah.
All the way down to Texas there.
North Carolina, Virginia area has 6,000 some Southern Baptist churches. So 9,000 in the Georgia area. And all
I'm not saying there aren't a lot.
Right.
I'm just saying that there are the majority.
That number shocked me a little
bit.
I didn't think there were several thousand churches in California, but there are.
Yeah. And my guess is they're primarily smaller churches in general. You probably have a couple of very large churches, but
have you been to Backwoods, Georgia, man?
And there's some pretty small churches there too. Yeah. My little mini's wider than some of those churches.
Oh goodness.
Well, listen, I know that this has been long. It's been fairly laborious. It's not something that I'm really excited to be addressing today. There's a if you're interested in the inner workings of the SBC, there's a book you can check out, the SBC FAQ. Mm-hmm. It is written by Amy Whitfield, who was on the EC, by the way, and edited by my friend, Dr. Harper, Dr. Keith Harper. Great little book, great read. It just kind of gives you a little bit of history, explains how the entire convention works. To me, I think it's interesting. Now, I'm not excited about the prospect of sitting in a 2-day business meeting, but
there's a lot of other things that go on at the SBC convention that is just fabulous.
Of course.
You get to hear all the missions work.
It's a 2-day business
meeting.
It
is. You get to go to a lot of great preachers, a lot of good messages. So there's a lot of other things that happen there. It's just recently it's been, laser focused on the meeting portion.
Because we have these meaningful things that need to be handled. And I get it. Yeah. I get it. And I'm willing to go and sit through it. And I might take an extra day and just walk around Disneyland. I don't know. We'll see. Because it is right there.
Yep. Go all the way out there. You might as well.
Who knows, man? Maybe half of the Southern Baptist Convention will be walking around some vineyard in Southern California.
Napa. Roll up to Napa, yeah. Oh, my Lord.
We might all need it.
That's what we need, a bunch of drunk Southern Baptists, yeah.
We can't get it right when we're sober.
Miserable.
Let's go have some wine. Yeah. Oh, man. Brother, do you want to talk about set list?
No, we can forego that for this week as we kind of went over.
Mine is all over the map this week as we go from our homecoming service here. We've got
that's a good old Southern Baptist thing.
Straight up hymns with the organ all the way to we're we got contemporary stuff in there too. So, man, my stage, you can't move on it this week.
Yeah.
Between the orchestra chairs, the piano and organ, the choir, the band, you just, nope.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to stand real still. But it's going to be good. And it's not homecoming. I think I called it homecoming. It's just an anniversary celebration.
Oh, okay.
So, it's not really homecoming. But anyway, listen, folks, if you have questions, reach out. I'm happy to try to answer those. Seriously, pick up that SBC FAQ by Amy Whitfield, edited by Dr. Keith Harper. Great little book. We'll walk you through probably in a much more succinct way than what we have done in an hour and a half today.
We're not. This is not the show for succinct.
No, we like to hear ourselves talk, I guess.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of good, and pray for that. Pray that this will be resolved. Hopefully, by the time those of you on podcast have heard this, hopefully there's been some resolution.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Hopefully they've been able to come to an agreement and waive this attorney-client privilege and move on. But as much as I want to be hopeful for that, I don't see evidence of it. But
well, the other we don't need to get into it again, but the other part of it, the attorney-client privilege, there are also stipulations of they also wanted to run the investigation as well and head up the investigation, which can't happen. So, and it was clear about that. So,
yeah, well, pray for this whole situation.
Yeah.
Pray for a resolution, not only just so that we can move on from this, but for those that are still hurting from the effect of the sins of others. I mean, we have a duty to bring those things to light and to bring them out and to deal with them in the most Christ-like and graceful way, if you will, to eradicate that from the life of the convention, as much as we should be diligent about doing the same things in our own lives, right?
Yeah.
See the sin, see it for what it is, and see it out, right?
Yeah, see it out.
So folks, brother, I'm praying for you
Appreciate
as you
it.
lead this weekend. I know we didn't talk about that, but you know what? We can't neglect that part, right? We've got to pray for one another. So, certainly pray for you. I pray for you every week as you lead. Everyone listening, if you're in leadership or even if you're just a Sunday school teacher, I'd say not just, but if you're a Sunday school teacher, if you're a pastor, whatever you are, we are praying for you as you seek to lead your flock or your little flock, if you're Sunday school, life group, whatever you happen to call them. Teacher, we're praying for all of you, praying that you will seek after God in such a way that you decrease and he increases, right, as the scripture says. So that is our prayer. Follow him as hard as you can after holiness. Seek him. info@thecomplaintdesk.com. Certainly you can check out the website and both things that are on it, thecomplaintdesk.com. We probably should do more with that, but let us know how we can help you. What you want to, what you need help with, what you'd like to hear us discuss and kind of hash out and waste your Friday morning. We'll be glad to do that. But thanks for tuning in. I hope you all have a great week, great weekend whenever you're listening to this, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. You guys have a great one.